Revolutionary greetings, comrades. It's a pleasure once more to connect with you, comrades, on our usual Saturday Unification Plus. My name is Comrade Eugene Odumango from Kenya, coordinator or co-chair for Consensus Study Group. We are philosophical and ideological study grouping where we do our group or study of conscientism book on every Thursday, or we do the reading and discussion. We set aside Saturday purposely to discuss the unification of Africa. We have managed to run this session for the last almost 1 year. So once again, feel most welcome. The purpose of us to start a unification The purpose for us to start a unification class was to ensure that Africans had a space to properly discuss issues to do with the unification of Africa. So once again, feel most welcome. Today, we are honored to have Ambassador Jasmin Rowe from the State of Africa Diaspora. I think I'm right. Who will then be presenting to us or sharing with us her thinking or efforts that are being made in order to unify the Africa and diaspora. This is a silent conversation, but it is a conversation that must be given weight. We cannot talk about unification of Africans without putting in the context our brothers and sisters who are forcefully ejected out of the continent. So once again, greetings from where you're joining us, and welcome, Sister and Ambassador Jasmin Rowe, to share with us today. After that, we will open up a session for either question and answer, and then general conversation to what must be done as we end our session. Our session will be ending in the next almost 85 or 95 minutes. It goes for 2 hours. So once again, feel most welcome, Ambassador. And greetings to all of you who are with us today and those who will be watching our recording. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. I was trying to get my laptop going, give me a free hand, but I'm still on my phone while the internet is pulling through. I'm Ambassador Jasmin Rowe. I'm an ambassador for the State of the African Diaspora, and I am ambassador in Ethiopia. You may ask, who are the State of the African Diaspora 6 region? In 2004, it was seen that in order to have a United States of Africa, we need to include the African diaspora, which are those of the historical transatlantic, sub-Sahara slave trade. So Africa being east, west, north, south, and central, a 6 region was set, which is that 6 region would include all the descendants of African slaves who are outside the continent. They're in the Caribbean, America, Europe, Australia, China. So we are the 6th region. And around, I think it was around 2004 that it was given that we need to deal with it ourselves. So a young man called Tin spoke with the Africa Union and was able to set up the parliament of the Africa Diaspora 6 region, SOAD, as we say. So we have ambassadors, we have members of parliament, and all different sections, education, and you name it, we have set our parliament, as you know. And I know that you know it on the continent. It's a difficult task for the descendants to return back into Africa. Well, I say it's a difficult task. It's not a difficult task, but it's seen as a difficult task. And one of the difficulties that we came up against from in the 70s, the early 70s, where we had the OAU in May 1963 with Kwame Nkrumah, Majesty, and all the other delegates. Even though it took 3 days to come up with that name, the Organization of African Unity, it was done. And the policies were set. And also it was set that the reparations committee was set. In fact, I like that name, Abiola, because Abiola of Nigeria was set as the chairperson for the reparations committee. And he did a wonderful job, and up until the 90s when they killed him. Abiola's job was to inclusive of pulling the African diaspora back on the continent, calling for reparations, and he did a lot. He went through the courts in the UK and places. I think he had a lawyer, Gifford. Lord Gifford was the lawyer that was working with him. They booed him out of every parliament because it was a white man supporting a Black people, which was not seen at the time. Now, with all that try, and I'm sure not many of you know also of the Durban Conference in 2001, which was another try. And that was where we found out that the parliament, the committee was set up to be dealing with bringing back the African diaspora on the continent. If I go back to Abiola, one of the problems that Abiola had in calling for reparations and for the descendants of African slaves on the continent was that we had many people of our brothers who are on the continent, born on the continent, fear that they would lose what they have because maybe some of their families were involved in the slave trade. You see, we in the Caribbean, for instance, we say, if there was no buyer, there would be no seller. So we don't blame our brothers and sisters on the continent for whatever happened within the slave trade or neo-colonialism, because the colonials wants us to blame one another. And that's not how it is. If we had a choice, we would have that choice today. So independence came, but all we had was part political independence, not only on the continent, but also in the Caribbean islands. We thought we were free, but our resources was not. Mentally and physically we can be, but we're not. So today the question is, how do we get to work together as Africans and the continent and Africans in the diaspora? And my views is always trading. I push trading a lot. I guess because I came from I was born in Jamaica and I arrived in England when I was 10 years old. And by 15 years old, I was with the Black Power movement, and from there to the Panthers, and then from there into Rastafari. So it's always been a push for Africa is my home. I learned something about the Europeans. They fight their war, the German, the French, the British, they fight one another. And their strategy was a people who trade together will stay together. So even though they hate one another, the fact that they were trading together, they stayed together. And that's what I think needs to be happening with the African continent and the diaspora. We need to be trading together. It's a very difficult task. The colonials are a few steps ahead of us in that they have these different currencies that do not cross borders. They have said it that way. The shilling is worth nothing in Ethiopia and it cannot move into Ethiopia. The birr in Ethiopia cannot move to the shilling land. I cannot send birr to the CD land or the Naira land. If I decide that I want to send some birr, which is Ethiopian currency, to Ghana, which is CD, I cannot. But yet the colonials can move their money all over the place. So we have to work with what we have and start trading together. The sixth region, meaning the Caribbean, the descendants of African slaves who are in England, America, Scotland, all these places, we have to learn to trade together. If we can trade, even if we have to use their currencies for a period of time, then we are building our own economy in our own places that we are. That's what they have said there. So we have to try and look at that angle of trading together. I'll give you a prime example. If you go into Kenya, Kenya might have about 30 different types of yam. Jamaica may have about 56 different types of yam. Ethiopia has one. You see the difference. So the food and the movements of foods and cloth and materials and things that we have at our fingertips, we need to be able to trade with each other, pass it along, and build our economy. It is not so much a governmental situation as a people's situation. The government don't care where we trade. All they care about is money coming into the country or into their pockets and envelopes. But as a people, we have got to try and develop ourselves because the government already has it. It's the people that is without it. And the same way that we would sell our products to our neighbors within our villages and towns, is the same way we need to learn to trade those same products out of the continent into the diaspora. Over the years, reggae music has been the main angle that reminded those on the continent that we exist in the Caribbean. Ones will say Jamaica. We have a lot of islands in the Caribbean, but a lot of people will just say Jamaica, But we use reggae music to spread the word, to calm the people, to wake up the people. So we've had many reggae artists that had spent years in doing lyrics to spread. So, and we did the similar thing on the plantation. The difference was with the plantation, we had drums. We were able to use the drums to send messages from islands to islands for the people to revolt, for them to burn the colonial houses, to burn the plantation in order for us to be free. Nothing is really changed except that we are not communicating as much as we were. If you think about it, when it came to the 1780s and 90s, we didn't have no mobile phones. The Africans, our fathers, were not allowed to read and write, but yet they were able to send messages throughout the Caribbean, into Haiti, into Trinidad, in order to tell them to revolt. It was actually I've forgotten his name, that was sent from Jamaica to Haiti to make them revolt for freedom. You see the difference today, where we have technology, we depend on it. When those days that we depended on the drums, which is something that the colonials hate. When it comes to reggae music, they like the reggae music, but they don't like the drums. They want to lower the drums because they fear it. They fear it. So I would say that those are the two main angles that we need to do to get that unification with those in the Africans in the diaspora and those on the continent, and actually more dialogues, because I see where I've been in meetings where there are Africans on the continent that will not deal with things like reparations, but they have to understand that the reparations for those that were sold out of the continent also lost. They didn't just take any and anyone off the continent. They took the educated, the skillful, the strong, and put them to work elsewhere. And as you can see how it is today, when you look at, like, say, within the American government, for instance, the strength of their governments are those of African descent. The strength of their sports is those of African descent. So we keep them going still to this day, only that we're called under their name, but we don't look like them. So it is important that we now swallow our pride and work together to be able to free both the continent and those in the Caribbean. And, you know, I see Kenya in situation, for instance, I see Sudan, I see Ethiopia. We're in such situation, but we're not looking at what's happening in the Caribbean. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. We're struggling, we have uprising. We may not be pulling the guns as in military-wise, but the guns have been pulled on the streets. Brothers are shooting brothers, killing each other, but yet we don't have no gun factories in Africa, and we don't have no gun factories in the Caribbean. So somebody's putting them guns there for us to kill each other. You know, I know my parents told me as a young girl coming up that as one dead, another one is born. And we give thanks that our nation as Africans, we are continuous. We're continuous. Maybe they think that if they kill as many, that we'll be less, but we won't be less, because until we have our freedom, we will not stop. Is there any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much for, I just joined in late, and thank you for your conversation. I find it quite intriguing, learning more about the Caribbean and the way, the perception of things there. I just had a question about the drum. You said, I know there are various drums, and I think the most famous one is the Njembe drum. But what exactly is it about the drum that, you know, heightens the existence of Africans? Or what does the drum really do? And making it one of the things that the colonialists really hate and suppress up to date. Thank you.
We were of different languages. We were of different languages. They had the Swahili as well as other languages. So all the Africans that was taken into the Caribbean, I use the Caribbean as an example. So you had the Mandinko language, you had the Swahili language, you had all these different languages. And they did not want us to speak to each other. We could not in some aspect because those from the East did not understand Mandinko, and those from the West did not understand Swahili. But the drum had its own language. So our forefathers were able to use the drum to communicate with one another. And still today, when you hear us talk of reggae music, I'm from Jamaica, so we know with the root of reggae music, it's a language. And that patois that we speak, the drum, is never really changed. It's never really changed. we were able to use the drum to pass information. All that's happened with our music is we have added extra instruments to that to send the words around the globe. Our main artists like Bob Marley, for instance, Dennis Brown, and all those artists, and we had many more with our parents' time as well, that sent that music. A lot of people may not understand the language that was sang with the music, with the drums and bass, but the drum made our people understand around the globe. A lot of people may have heard Bob Marley's song, and the drum alone speak before they understood when Bob said, "Get up, stand up." They understood the drum first before they understood the lyrics. So that's what it is. That's one of the things that we do always have in common with those of us in the diaspora and those on the continent, the drum, because the drum speaks. It's a feeling, it's a feeling that you have as into we have something in common and what it's saying, what the drum is saying. You understand? Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador, for that. Any other question? Anybody with any other question to Ambassador? Because I have a couple of questions, but allow me to get anybody first with any question to go ahead.
Well,
yes.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This one is not a question per se, but you might give an insight into the comments I'm about to make. Bob was recently in a few African countries, namely Zimbabwe, Zambia, and I think I heard that he also visited Johannesburg. And to what extent do you think that cooperation at a cultural level could help, just as you suggested that trade would be of a great help in the unification of the African people with our kinsmen in the diaspora. So to what extent do you think cultural exchanges could be of similar help in the journey towards total unification? I hope that's clear enough. I was also trying to gather my thoughts. So yeah, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Abiola. One of our biggest problems today is borders, imaginary borders, which means that it is difficult for Kenya, say, take the continent itself, to trade with Ghana because of the currency, unless we're going to use the fiat, their currencies that they have. I know that I'm born in Jamaica. I arrived in England when I was 10 years old, and now I've been living in Ethiopia now for 24 years. And I can see where the situation is, and learning from the colonials when they fighted each other, because they did it just like we fight each other. They did it. And then when they finished their fighting, they had to figure out a way to unify. I'm sure you've all seen like birthday cards, anniversary cards, and those kind of things. This is what they did. They derived cards, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and these kind of things to send out to each other. And once that kind of settled a bit, they decided that a people that trade together will stay together. And that's how the, you call it the EU today, it was called the Common Market in the early days. They learned to trade together. And once they started trading together, they realized that they had to keep it up because their economy were growing, even though they had already from the slave trade, but the economy was growing. The people was better off. The people were able to move as well. So it's breaking down the barriers that they have set there to keep us apart. And trading together means that we're moving from place to place. If you notice in your countries, similar with, I've noticed in Ethiopia, the most people that move is those who are doing business abroad. Visas comes, you can cross borders, you can get on a plane to America, to England, once you are in business, you know? So we have to have strategies to be able to do this. And coming from the Jamaica to the England to Africa, I've seen that's where they have locked us, that we're not able to move. And the other thing about it as well, you know, when I was like 14, 15 years old, my father told me that, why do I want to go to Africa? And I said, it's my home. He told me that the people in Africa eat people. Can you imagine? So this was something that the colonials taught them to stop us from going into the continent. And they also stopped those in the African continent to going into the Caribbean and England to meet with their own Africans. Most people that leave the continent to go into England, for instance, they don't go there to meet their other African brethren and sisters. They go there for jobs, or they think that these places are better than Africa, but they're not. They're not. You know, example here, you know, I just took in 22 more this week who have repatriated to Ethiopia. It's not better. And this is where they blinded us to make us dislike one another, by not understanding each other. What they put in their books and on the internet about people of the Caribbean, mainly Jamaica, or people of Africa, mainly Nigeria, there's a thing that the two strongest that stands up for fighting is being like the Nigeria and the Jamaicans. You don't really hear about the other islands so much, but that's what it is, you know. We have to try and find the other angle as well. You know, most of you would have heard of Bob Marley. Bob spread the word. We're from the same Rastafarian organization, the 12 Tribes of Israel. Bob decided to go out there and spread the word. I think the first place was Zimbabwe, when Mugabe's daughter invited him to come and sing for their independence. You know, the independence of Zimbabwe. He went there to sing there. He's been to Ethiopia, he's been to Tanzania. Even within Ethiopia, he was instrumental in helping the royal family of Ethiopia, the children especially, to escape from the regime that was in the country, even though that's kept quiet. But I hope that answers your question. And is there any other question?
Thank you. Any other question to Ambassador? Any member?
Abiola, did I answer your question?
Yes, that was very insightful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're one people. We're one people. The difference is that they've given us different names and nationalities. And if you think of the continent as one before the Berlin Conference, we're one continent, East, West, North, South, and Central, but we're one continent. And now with the division of these continents, these countries, they've now made countries. And inside of those countries, they have made tribes. And inside of those tribes, they have made religions. So that divide and rule is still tearing us apart because they're brainwashing us into different things. And if we're not meeting each other and sitting around the table as those of us in the diaspora and those on the continent, then we're always going to have a problem. This is why I always say trade, and the other area is music. Music, all African countries, all the Caribbean, music carries the word. Music carries the word. And I would say that the continent need to promote more of the musicians to come into their country to talk, to sing about, the unity, but there is also a barrier there on visas. They make it very difficult for ones to get visas, especially those from the Caribbean, to enter. I would say that even though I have been in Ethiopia 24 years, it's been a struggle to be able to settle. One of my jobs is to settle the community that's returned. 80 years our community has been in Ethiopia. And it was land that was given as a gift by the emperor for our service rendered. When Italy invaded Ethiopia in the 1930s, the people of the Caribbean and America came together we had planes, we had medicines, soldiers, that came to fight in Ethiopia to fight off the Italians, especially the fact that Italians was dropping mustard gas. It was Robinson from one of the islands that flew the plane that dropped the mask around the Tigray region in order to protect the people from the death of the mustard gas. So Emperor Haile Selassie gave us some land in a place called Shashamane that we should come and settle. And it's been a difficult task to this day that we're still fighting to be able to settle. I don't think that anyone lives in a country for 80 years and don't have citizenship status. So we are still being used as slaves, basically, in that we may not be on the plantation, but we're being taxed. We were given an ID in the early days, which was 50 birr per year, and then 400 pounds per year, and then 1,500 birr per year. Now we're being given one that is 5,000 per year. And then it went up to 17,000 per year. And yesterday it was 36,000. No, 17,000 for 5 years. And yesterday, and the 1st of November, it was 36,000 for 5 years. And because they are putting everything in dollars, it makes it harder on us because you're living in a country that's birr. And yet, to pay for your ID is $300, which changes daily according to the currency itself, the dollar. So we're all being taxed by this dollar. There is a saying.
You can proceed, just proceed. Sorry for interjecting.
Sorry?
Sorry for interjecting. I wanted to ask a question, but proceed, please.
Okay. Go ahead.
Can I ask my question, Ambassador?
Of course. Yes.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate the challenges you're going through in order to be part of the community. One is, do the CARICOM countries fail to be part of Africa Union? Are the countries in CARICOM thinking they're willing to be part of African Union instead of being CARICOM as a separate? Because irrespective of geographical differences, we are one people. And also, based on what you are raising, it seems the continent is not also ready to take our brothers and sisters coming back for the purpose of unification. So these are almost life experience on what you are meeting and what you are going through, having tried to come back. So what is the perspective of CARICOM countries? I know I need it apply to be part of AU, but there are also adults to that. And the rest of CARICOM probably think of joining AU irrespective of geographical differences, so that we speak with one voice. But also, based on what you are meeting in Ethiopia, as having stayed there, what would be the recommendation you propose in order to have a smooth transition and unification of our brothers, both outside the continent and in the continent?
Is that a question or a comment?
Both are questions. Both are questions. Whether CARICOM or people from the Caribbean countries willing to come to join AU member states. But of course, our bigger intention is to move beyond states to be one Africa continental unity government for the whole Africans, not only for the continent, but the all Africans to unite under one government. And the second is based on the challenges you're meeting, having stayed in Ethiopia and come back, what could we recommend or what could we think should help smoothen the process? Because as we call for unification, the government must be ready to actually bring and accept our brothers and sisters to unite with us.
You know, comrade, when I arrived here, I read a letter that was given to our elders, you know, in the early days. The land was given in 1948. And being a community leader here in Ethiopia, the one who was assigned to measure the land grant and do all the paperwork on that to ensure that we were allocated the land. He showed me all the letters, and there was a letter there. It was from the Jamaica government, but of course, the privy, because Jamaica, this letter was dated 1959, and Jamaica did not have independence there at the time. But the letter was asking Emperor Haile Selassie, is it true that you have invited the people of Jamaica to come and settle in Ethiopia? Emperor Haile Selassie answered that letter and said, yes, there is land for the people of Jamaica and those Black people of the world to come home and settle in Shashamane, Ethiopia. The letter that was returned after Majesty's letter said, do not invite the people of Jamaica to come and settle in Ethiopia because they have not finished developing Ethiopia. So you can see where the neo-colonialism carries on. Even though that was done by the privy, the white colonials of Jamaica at the time, Jamaica got independence in 1962. In 1963, the main Pan-African freedom fighters in Jamaica were the Rastafarians. And I'm sure many of you have heard of the Tivoli Gardens affair, you know. It was where they decided that the Rastafarians wants to go back to Africa, get rid of them. And the word was by Bustamante, who was then made Prime Minister of Jamaica in 1962. Those who cannot fit in the prison, put them in the cemetery. And nothing is changed today. So anyone that stands up to fight for the rights to return to Africa goes through this killing. So in Jamaica, for instance, in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and still to this day, they kill the Rastafarians because they teach Africa. Now, at the time with CARICOM, when CARICOM was being formed as the Caribbean, United Caribbean, so was Africa. 1963, those who had independence on the continent were now going to form something to work together. Because if you remember, Emperor Haile Selassie went out there, and Ethiopia was part of the League of Nations. And what Majesty realized that even though he went out there to protect his country, they did not. Similar what you see today with the United Nations, they are for themselves, they're not for Africa. So of course, when Emperor Haile Selassie returned back to Ethiopia in 1948 after the war, he looked about calling all the African leaders. As they got their independence, we came together, and that was where they formed the OAU, because we could see that the other countries, the other organizations, the League of Nations did not support. They just wanted us to be part of, to hear our ideas. So we still, even though we have the OAU, which is now being changed to the UN, the EU, the AU, we're still not able to function to the fullness of our ability. The CARICOM was able to set up and go together as CARICOM, but they also fear. I had meetings with CARICOM last month. It was the anniversary on the 7th of September of the unity between CARICOM and the African continent. But what has been done? And I asked the same question to them also. What have we done? We're celebrating 3 years of the unification of CARICOM and the African continent, but what has been done? Is there been any meetings? Is there been any plans? No. It's just that one of the ticks of what's to be done within the African Union. So, you know, those people who wants to return to settle in Africa gets a fight, or they die, or they put in prison, same way to this day. And I know that right now there's a man sitting in prison in Jamaica, and he's been there like 59 years. And why? Because he had locks and he wanted to go to Africa. And they took him and put him in prison. And to this day, people are protesting for him to be released. There was another one that had been there for 42 years. No charges. He was released dead. I think it was 2021 that he was released dead. So there's some of the problems that you go through on the continent where your Pan-African leaders gets killed or thrown in jail. We don't have our own as Africans. We don't have our own. Well, we do have satellites, but they're not connected. So we depend on the colonial news to give us information. So there's a lot going on the Caribbean with Pan-Africans who are being murdered, locked up in prisons, similar to what's happening on the continent. There's not a lot of difference. Not a lot of difference.
Thank you.
And it's just
Yeah, proceed. Let me proceed. Sorry for interjecting. I'd like to request Brother Kwame to come in after your presentation with the African anthem, and we'll take over the chairship to the end of the session. probably just remind us what the AU anthem is saying and whether also we walk the talk. But Brother Connie, please come in, and also Ambassador will continue the conversation from where I've left it under the chairship of Brother Kwame. Thank you. Welcome, Brother Kwame.
Tuungane sote na tushereke pamoja ushindi kwa ukombozi wetu. Tujitoe wenyewe, tusimame pamoja kulinda uhuru na umoja wetu. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote tuimbe pamoja, kuenzi shikamano hatima yetu. Tujitoe wenyewe kupambana pamoja, uhuru na umoja vitawale. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima. Tuungane sote na tujibidishe kutoa kilicho bora kwa Afrika, chimbuko la wanadamu, chemchemi ya utamaduni, tumaini letu wakati wa mafarakano. Enyi Bwana na binti wa Afrika, mwili wa jua, mwili wa anga, tuifanye Afrika mti wa uzima.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Pigeon. Yes, let's continue with our discussions. Sister Ambassador Jasmin Rowe, thank you for your incisive presentation, your recollection of history, and your sharing with us how far we have come and where we ought to be going. We have had questions from brothers and sisters. The conversation continues. I'm Brother Kwame, yes, chair of CSG. And once again, thank you for joining us. In order for us to proceed, Sister Ambassador, can you just summarize for us, because some of us missed it, some of us didn't arrive at the very beginning when you were speaking. Could you just summarize for us your presentation today, what you set out to share with us in terms of Africa's unification? Is that okay? Thank you.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
I suggested that
wherever we all are. Thank you.
It's the same thing that I speak to about with my nation, trading. And they are trying to be able to trade with the African continent. But I think we need some seminars where we can sit and talk about what, who, where, when. You know, I know that we are trying on our own in groups, but we need to make it bigger. We need to make it bigger. You have, if you take, for instance, you might have in Kenya, say I will use Kenya, that there's a woman sitting selling yam, you know? And in Kenya, I think there's at least, I would say at least a 20, I'm not too sure about the yams things, but I would say there's at least a 20 different types of yam in Kenya. Am I right? Kenya?
I don't know. I'm not a Kenyan, so I don't know. But I know in Ghana, yes, there are different types of yams in Ghana. There's a puna yam. There's a yam for making porridge. There are different types of yam in Ghana, as far as I know. But I don't know about Kenya.
Yes.
But
And I would say Jamaica
sorry, let's ask
and
Brother Pigeon.
Ghana.
Brother Pigeon.
Jamaica and Ghana. And with Jamaica and Ghana, they have the most. Jamaica, Ghana, and Nigeria, I definitely know there's at least 30 types of yam in Ghana. There's only one in Ethiopia. You have about 5,000 in my region. We have about 5,000 of us from the Caribbean and only one type of yam. Ghana has ackee. Ghana has plantain. We don't have it here. If we are to bring yam here, it's coming in, like we would say, travel and bring back yam or bring back ackee. Ghana has shea butter and black soap. You have these people here that needs it.
Sister Ambassador, just a quick one. So my quick, I've just checked the internet. It says there are 600 species of yam identified, of which 15 to 20 are commonly consumed. Just to give you just a few breakdown, the African white yam, grown in West Africa. There's a yellow Guinea yam, which is also grown in West Africa. There's a Chinese yam, it's called. That's in East Africa. There's a winged yam, which grows in various tropical regions. There's a lesser yam, kush yam, purple yam, and so on and so forth. Thank you.
The only one we have in Ethiopia is the purple yam. Whereas Ghana, Nigeria, and Jamaica, those are countries that I know of, and yam has a lot that is not. So you kind of look at it and think, oh, are we getting our staple diet? Because these are things that we're used to. But we know where they are, is to trade. To trade. The woman that goes into Circle and sit in Ghana and sell a few heads of yam, and maybe the white man purchases it in farm and bulk, and takes it into England and America and Canada to sell it at a higher rate. Who's buying it? The same Africans in those places, you know?
So Ambassador, so your main message for us today is trade. Is that correct?
Yeah,
trade. So we should trade amongst ourselves. And
people that trade together stay together.
Yes. So trade, and you are linking that to the African Free Trade Continental Area. Is that correct?
Yeah, I am linking it to that, as well as before the African Free and Continental Trade was set in January 2021. It's always been that goal to be able to do it. It's a way of unity. You're communicating. You know, we are able to communicate. Presently, we don't communicate. We don't communicate.
So the unification of Africa will be enhanced through trade, and that's what you're also calling for. So thank you very much for summarizing your presentation for us. Let's then broaden the conversation and bring others in. So, brothers and sisters, you have heard our own Ambassador Jasmin Rowe, who has shared with us her view, and which I think we'll all accept that trade is fundamental. We need to trade amongst ourselves. We are not currently trading enough, and we need to trade. So let's hear let's hear what others think. This is the Consensus Study Group. It's our usual Saturday, and it's a conversation we're having amongst ourselves. We are talking amongst ourselves, and we are saying that we need to unite. And so on Saturdays, we meet like this, and we share our thoughts on the unification of Africa, where we are, where we've come from, and where we ought to be going. Trade, yes, trade. Trade is very important. Yeah, so let's hear from others. Brother Kama Hachundi, I hope you will later on talk to us, not necessarily today, but in your session, on how you think the blockchain technology could help us trade. Because I know you said you've been mining crypto, so you can kind of share with us how that can link in. Yeah, let's hear from you. So Adiola, what are your thoughts on trade? Yes, I know a lot of West Africans travel to Nigeria to buy goods, because Nigeria, as you know, is a powerhouse on the continent, to trade. Trade. Adiola, what do you think? So we try and speak a woman first, a man, and then a woman, and a man, or a man first, a woman, in that order. We try and hear the male and female voices. Yes, Adiola, what do you think? If Adiola is not ready, we go to Abigail. Abigail Kosgei, what do you think? So we're having a conversation on unification, on our thoughts on unification, and yeah, what we think. Yes, Adiola. Who is ready, Adiola or Abigail? Yeah, whoever is ready, please. You need to unmute yourself, Abigail, if you are talking. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay. I think I'm now cleared.
Yeah, yes, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you. Yes, proceed. What are your thoughts? Thank you.
Being a very potent method of unification. When you trade, you can trade with even people that you don't have so much similarities with or things in common. As long as there are mutually beneficial arrangements, so how much more for
Your line is not very clear. Adiola, you're not coming across. I don't know if it's your line. Either it's yours or it's mine, which one of them. But we can't hear you properly. Brother D Black is in the
on learn more.
Yeah, Adiola, we can't hear you very well. I think it's the line.
Oh.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Adiola. So sorry about that. Let's go to Abigail. Abigail, what do you think?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, we know you are there. What do you think?
Okay, I'm enjoying the conversation, and I think I like what Madam Ambassador said, that people who trade together stay together. So I'm just wondering, I'm asking, what is the current situation of the African free trade? Is it existing? Who is using it successfully? Because I hear about it, but I don't know if it's true. Number two, let me talk about Kenya. I think the government has made it difficult to trade by increasing taxes and also increasing the requirements to carry a business. You require so much money per year to pay to the government just by virtue. And now with the not so new government in Kenya, the tax rates have skyrocketed. Therefore, discouraging profit, discouraging trading. What can someone tell me? I'm just
Okay.
asking any economist in the house. Comment on that.
There are
Thank you.
economists in the house. I don't know if they can comment on that. But let me help you before Sister Ambassador comes in.
But I'll also request to come in on that as well.
Sorry? Okay. So on the first question, on whether this thing even exists, these are the facts as far as I know. The African Continental Free Trade Area, which is called AFTA, is A small f, capital CFTA, or you can say AFTA. It's actually now in its operational phase with significant progress, as I understand, made since its inception. And in terms of its current status, which is what you've asked, is as follows. In March 21st, 2018, in Kigali, Rwanda, it was adopted. Then it entered into force on the 30th of May, 2019. Then its operational phase was launched on July 7th, 2019, at the 12th Extraordinary African Union Summit that took place in, guess where? Niger, in Niamey in Niger. Then trading under AFTA officially commenced on January 1st, 2021. So that is the state. Now, in terms of its ratification status, as of August 2024, 54 out of 55 African Union member states have signed the agreement. Yeah. Now, 47 countries have deposited their instruments of ratification. So Eritrea is the only country that has not signed the agreement. We'll find out why later. So Sister Abigail, I hope that kind of answers your question. Yeah. There are key instruments, operational instruments, and so on and so forth. But in terms of your question, that is where we are currently. We are in its operational phase. Does that answer that question? First question?
Yes, thank you.
Your second question was on Kenya. And I think Brother Pigeon would like to share his thoughts on that, as he wants to be president of Kenya. I'm sure you have thoughts on that. But let Sister Ambassador Amanda, or let me say Madam Ambassador. That sounds better, isn't it? Let's Madam Ambassador share her thoughts first, and then Brother Pigeon will come in here his views on Kenya. Madam Ambassador.
I think, Abigail, you'll find that on the Eastern Bloc, they are doing what they're doing, and they originally had a digital currency which was designed in Ghana so that we would all be able to trade, all, meaning the rich and the poor. But since it was working, it's kind of gone quiet. The Eastern Bloc is doing some kind of trade. That's the eastern part of Africa. The brother that designed, as Brother Kwame said, in January 2021, when it was put out, that there is a digital currency that we can trade in. So in other words, Kenya is in shilling. They buy their products from Ghana in shillings, and Ghana receives CDs. But it's gone quiet. So trading is going on, but it's I would say, like, the small people. The rich is getting on with it. But we, the people, who, as you say, is being taxed, is not, because they have put a fear in us. Tax has been going on for years and years and years, from the days of the Romans. Today, they're using these heavy taxes to cause fear in us from doing business. So we're supposed to be consumers of other people. Other people send their products into our countries and we buy them. The China, the Russia, the Ukraine, we buy them. But we are not selling our products to each other. We're not. Some middleman is actually buying it from us to sell it to our people elsewhere. we need to be able to deal with it ourselves and battle through those taxes. It's not only on the continent, it's also in the Caribbean that they are hitting the people heavy with taxes. As I say here for us, the returnees on the continent, we're seeing it too. As I said, we started off with a 50 burr for our status in the country. And now we're at 35,000 burr. And if you live, so it's burr, but it's $300. So those who are outside who are paying for their status in this country at $300, they are working in dollars, but we are working in burr. And 35,000 is a lot of money, you know. So I guess it's working, but the ordinary people is not getting the information of how to. And unless you go into internet and search, it's very difficult. But I would say we have to do it.
So, Ambassador, I'm sure you are aware that regardless of what those at the top are doing, Africans are trading among themselves. They've been doing so for years. And whatever the guys up there are doing or not doing, Africans are trading. So Ghanaians, for instance, will fly to, I don't know, Uganda or Kigali, and they will trade. And they have their African wear, and they'll buy a space in the trade fair and they will trade. So it's happening. In terms of the digital currency that you mentioned, I just wanted to ask you about that. In February 2024, the AFTA Digital Trade Protocol was adopted. This was only this year, February 2024. As far as I know, well, it aimed to facilitate digital trade across Africa, but it doesn't specifically mention a digital currency. So I think we're interested to know more about that, because as far as I know, no particular digital currency has been adopted. The central bank digital currencies, however, are in place. So since 2018, for instance, several African countries have launched initiatives to create government-controlled cryptocurrencies, or what are called CBDCs. But as far as I know, these are not directly tied to African Free Trade Continental Area, but they they represent a growing interest in digital currencies on the continent. Are you able to throw more light on these digital currencies? Because it could be that we are not hearing about it because although the Digital Trade Protocol has adopted it, they haven't really come up with a digital currency as such. Could it be why we haven't heard much about it?
I think in 2019, 2020, Swiffin came up with a currency which is called the Lumi, which is known as the diaspora currency, because it was designed from the Caribbean, the diaspora bank in Jamaica. And then within a few years, we had a problem with it, but it's back on track now. So you have the Lumi, which is another digital currency that we actually work with. So for instance, you're in Ghana, and if you've got Lumi and I want to buy something from you, I can buy it from you in Lumi. Certain parts of Ghana, South Africa, countries that have accepted it are working, but we ourselves who have it, we do trade together with it. Not at no great big bulk, even though we've got it. I mean, most of us has got about $40,000, $50,000 in Lumi in our accounts. We had about 3 years when it was designed that anyone of African descent, 18 years old and over, who applies for Lumi would get equivalent, I would say equivalent to $100 per month. So they are all saving their currency. It's in Ghana, it's in Kenya, it's in Zimbabwe, Jamaica, obviously, England, So, we do have it. But again, with our people, the argument was, well, I can't change it to dollars or pounds. But the idea wasn't to change it to dollars or pounds. It was to use it to trade with
Right,
each
right.
other, you know.
Okay. No, thank
The Afrofic.
Sister Ambassador, thank you very much for that. I believe you are a big part of the Lumi movement. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm a Lumi girl.
That's good, because I'm sure you have done presentations for our sister organization in London. We would love to hear if Brother Pigeon can arrange that with you. We would like to hear a distinct presentation on the Lumi, because when I first heard of it, I thought that it is something that could assist Africa in terms of trade. And indeed, you are right that the Lumi is a digital currency, but the African Union has not adopted it as its digital currency, and the digital protocol has also not adopted it. So maybe this is something we need to be looking at. That if the Lumi has been created by the African Diaspora Central Bank, and it is equivalent to 100 kilowatts of solar energy, inspect at 4 grains of gold.
Wow. Oh, you know about it.
Yes, we do. We here do, because some of us attend other meetings, so we know about it. Yes. So given its base value, it's approximately 15 or 16 US dollars. And we know it's governed by the African Diaspora Central Bank and so on. But what we would like is a presentation from you on that, so that we give you time to basically talk about that. And so, I mean, although it's not specifically created for the African Free Trade Continental Area, it's seen as a potential binding force among all 55 African countries in the African Continental Free Trade Platform. So that's something we'd like you to present on later. Yeah.
I can always get Dr. Linus to do that, but it is used on the continent as well as in the diaspora.
Yeah. So
and
what
I've
would like
seen with
what would like
Kenya.
you to so Madam, what would like you to do is to tell us more about it, how it's being used, and then how we can support it, and what needs to be done, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I appreciate today is not on the Lumi, but as it has come up, I really appreciate if you would do a presentation for us separately on that. Yeah.
That's fine.
I take that to mean a yes.
Yes, I'll get Dr. Linus to do it. He designed it.
Oh, I see.
And of course, the maroon tongue.
Yeah. Yes, Brother Pigeon, you wanted to say something.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that, and hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
I wanted to comment on the trade.
Yes, please.
Of course, I've sat in the trade committee, which is
Brother Pigeon. Can you hold on? I think Sister Abigail had a second question that Madam Ambassador was going to answer. So let her answer that, then you come in. So, Madam Ambassador, can you answer Sister Abigail's second question on the Kenyan question?
Can I ask what it was, Sister Abigail?
Sorry?
Can I ask what her question was?
Yeah, Sister Abigail, can you can you ask the question again? Thank you.
So I was just saying, the government has made it very hard to be a trader. So, for example, we have a number of tax that we traders have to pay. For example, my mom runs a school, so she has to pay her tax in advance.
Wow.
For the year. And then when she does her returns, they will deduct whatever she matches her tax and return to her. Then there's a different tax for owning a school bus. She has to pay that 4 times a year. So you see that she has 4 different types of tax. I can't remember the others. She also, when she's paying salaries for her staff, they also pay tax. Anyone above $200. This is a small economy, so don't be shocked someone is earning less than $200. So I run a business, a retail store. So for me to run a retail store, I need about $1,000 that I give to the government annually in form of, let me say, licenses, not even tax on its own, licenses. Then I do my monthly tax, where I balance out what I have bought, the tax I have used in buying, and the tax I have sold to my clients. And there's a small amount that I pay. Small means about, let's say, not two, maybe $500, no, yeah, $500 per month. Per month, that's a lot to me. That's the amount of my rent, you get? So therefore, trading is no longer profitable to me or to most business people, unless you are not a small trader. You are like people who run industries or import, really, warehouse size, really a mega trader. That's when you feel the profit in Kenya. And this government has made it worse because they have introduced other taxes in people's pay slip. So there's no money that's going around. If I used to earn 1,000 per month, now when this government comes in, I'm now earning, let's say, 700. So they have increased the tax. So there's no circulating money. If there's no circulating money, there's no trading. So it's discouraging. So what do you have to say about that? Because that's discouraged trade. Yeah, that's it.
Sister Abigail, it's the same thing that's happening here. I see the small businesses being taxed in the same manner as the big businesses.
Sorry, Ambassador, when you say here, do you mean Ethiopia?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what they're doing over the past months is that they're actually going around to the shops to ensure that the shops are writing receipts. The government is also designed a special till that everybody has to use those tills so that they can be taxed. You see, so this is going right back to that colonial thing that we're supposed to be employees and not employers. And this is what they've been pushing, because the businesses, there's a category of people that they want to be in business. You understand? So it's a battle that we have to fight. A lot of businesses here, especially within our community, is basically closed down. You've got businesses that was like maybe going for 6 months and they get a tax bill 3 times what they have earned in the past 6 months. And it's like you go to jail or you pay the money. So ones are having to pull from the families to pay the money. I have quite a few friends who have chosen to go to jail. And each month when they're due to come out, they come up with another bill while you're in jail to say, oh, you have to serve another month for this, or you have to serve another month for that. So this is a colonial thing, whether it's coming out of the mouth of our African brothers and sisters, but it's a colonial thing to ensure that we Africans are employees rather than employers. If you understand my drift. It is a difficult one because they do that. A lot of us here just get on with our business. I found that when they gave us ID cards, we could register our business. We're entitled to own our land, movable and non-movable, do business and everything. But once you register, the taxes hits everybody hard. So even the indigenous Ethiopians have gone back to doing their business without registering. And it sounds like illegal, but is it illegal? Is it illegal?
I'm surviving.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have to, we have to. And in the meantime, what's happening, they push businesses like buy and sell. So the bank will tell you that instead of you doing your business in catering or hairdressing or these kind of things, these are businesses on the ground. They would like you to buy products, buy the hair products and sell, buy and sell. But the minute you buy something and you have to put your takings, you know, what you want to, the profits on top of it, what you want to earn, you don't make nothing. You're basically selling and paying bills without having nothing in your account. So ones might say that we run things illegally in Ethiopia, but it's a battle that we have to go through. When I first came to Ethiopia and wanted to set up a training school, I'm a food and hygiene trainer. And I was told, well, set it up. And once you set it up, then you come and register. And I told it to other people, and other people that set up their business and then went to register. The local authority shut them down because they want us to be dependent or consumers. So China, Russia, everybody send their products to be sold here. Incidentally, I'd like to tell you something. I read a few years ago in the Jamaican Constitution after independence. And this little clause in it stuck, and I had to mention it in the Zoom meeting that I was in. It says, not even a nail was to be made in Jamaica. That meant that Jamaica was to be buying from somewhere else. And the products, the sugar cane, the fish, everything was to be shipped out. Imagine. Schools was not allowed. It was Cuba that built some schools. And once the new government came in, they closed down those schools. Similar thing around the continent. I mean, when I came here, there was no school in this area at all. None at all. So since that, we have built about 4 schools, which are housing and actually teaching the local indigenous as well as our children. So it's a case of rewinding back that we must be abetting to them. We must be employees rather than employers. And I would not give up my business.
Yes, Madam Mazza, thank you very much for your answer to the question. Let Brother Pigeon now come in and ask his questions. But before that, can you answer this question very quickly, just in a sentence or two? Is someone able to mine Lumi crypto? Yes or no?
I don't know. I would have to ask the treasurer that.
Okay, thank you.
She lives next door.
Thank you. Brother Pigeon.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I wanted to react on a few things. One, on the trade. You see, WTO, World Trade Organization, was actually set up by the US for the purpose to control the trade across the globe. I am a member of 2 committees that each country that is a member of WTO must set up those committees, subscribe to those committees. So WTO has what you call sanitary and phytosanitary committee, which ensures the hygiene and the health standard of any product to be traded. So if you leave with your banana in Ghana, when you arrive at the airport of Kenya, it will not pass until it goes to Kenya Plant and Health Inspectorate to check whether that banana has any pesticide that is being moved to Kenya. That still blocks the trade we are talking about.
Exactly.
Secondly, I am a member of a committee called Technical Barriers to Trade. This is a committee that checks at both also tariff and non-tariff barriers. And there's a committee called National Trade Facilitation Committee. And the last committee is called Codex, which deals with the standards. For example, there are what you call minimal residual level, or there are also what you call hazard-based approach and risk-based approach. So, for example, you cannot move your goods from Kenya to Ghana as much as you have AFTCA, but there hasn't been what you call continental standard. Trades and goods are traded on standards. So each country must agree on standards of good that they want in. The minimum level of pesticides and insecticide or anything else that's being used to those products. If that has not been ratified, and that's what Africa is working on, they are working on that under there's a commission that's working to develop a continental standard for goods. So Kenya has a standard. For example, Kenya Standard Bureau Union of Kenya that deals with the standards in Kenya. If I have to take my product to Ghana, I'll subject my product to Ghana standard. So unless we come up with what we call mutual and harmonizations, and that is always being done with what we call mutual recognition agreement under diplomatic states. So what happened is that once we are able to develop a continental standard, then that will become a mark of standard for each country. And therefore, no product from one country can be subjected to another testing as long as they have that mark of standard. That's a very important thing that's needed in order to start trading properly, the standard, common standard. Another thing is tariffs. I know East Africa is ratifying what you call, I was part of a strategic committee that was looking at East Africa Commission in regards to what they call the ratification on standards and harmonization of trade. So East Africa Committee are agreeing on one level of trade. So any good from Kenya to Tanzania will pass because they meet the standards. So at the end of the day, trade is yes necessary, but these issues that are being put in like tariffs, standards, minimum what called the pesticide level or whatever residential level, for example, the toxin level or aflatoxin level in maize, different various countries. This blocks trade in Africa. And this blocks us to trade also with the Caribbean. On regards to, of course, what you call the taxation that they're being put in, the Western countries want to take advantage and set up their business in the continent. They pay good tax to the government. So the government is closing local businesses in favor of the external businesses. The trade agreement between Kenya and the US is called STIP, Strategic Trade Investment Plan, has failed to start off because farmers are not ready to give in access to some other demands that the US want. The US cannot access our whole market, but they want our whole market. So they want to invest, which means you kill the local farmers. The agreement between Kenya and the EU, which is called EPA, was just ratified in the Parliament of EU, but still having some issues. So at the end of the day, there's no way a smaller country like Kenya will trade with EU and US in same leverage or same equal platform, because those people have ability of capital to come and exploit our resources vis-a-vis us. So they will pay more the government, and the government then will put more taxation to those who want to start their businesses and less taxation to those who are coming in to set up businesses. That's different with what Ethiopia is doing, because Ethiopia is also observing what you call Ethiopia is not a member of UN COMESA.
Brother Pigeon, you're talking too fast. Slow down a bit. Please, slow down a bit. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm saying Ethiopia, in their policy, they have what you call protective measures in their foreign policy. So they protect their market, unlike many other countries that operate open market. Eritrea is not a member of any global state. In fact, Eritrea is standing alone. They don't want interference or ratification or joining any MOU with the world. They want to operate alone. And that's why you see they are not even member of FTCA. They're not member of WTO, and they're not member of any regional business bloc. They don't have debt for anybody. They don't have loan for any country. They're developing alone. And that's, I think, the perspective that's also very important. So just to analyze this, yes, I accept trade is important, because we have to have what we call long-distance trade, barter trade, and that's the only way you can know your neighbor and even learn their language through trading. So this is one of the ways Africa can unite if we embrace trade. But these barriers that are put in place, we must see how we can address them in order to allow us to fully trade. That's my input.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, but Brother Pigeon, I don't know if others also thought that, but your sound wasn't very clear. But it may be just my end. I don't know if others had the same issue. Ambassador, what do you think?
I'm trying. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, yes. Okay. So this is something that the Europeans does. So you have corporate social responsibility, you know, and you have HISAP. These are European laws for Africa. The HISAP is the hazard crucial something or the other point. So in other words, you've got to know where your product is coming from. If I'm in like say in Jamaica and I'm buying a product from Kenya, or it's Kenya or Ghana, I must have done my HACCP. Okay? So I must know where the product is coming from. I must know what goes on with it. And I must know all the way to the kitchen where it's been and any dangers with it. Even though they break the rules themselves, who makes the rules? You've also got the corporate social responsibilities, which, you know, they're spilling oil all over our continent and they don't take no responsibility. But if I want to send a pineapple from Ghana to Jamaica, the British wants to know the European laws says that I must make sure that there is no child labor, there is no, you know, all these different things. So they makes the law to hold us back. I know because I teach it. Corporate social responsibility. And every time I say it, I say, well, what about the oil that's being spilled in the rivers over there? What are you doing about it? But yet, if I'm going to say, send pineapples from one country to the other, especially to the African countries or to the Caribbean, I must abide by these rules. Not saying that one should not abide by the rules because they are important, but they don't abide by it. They put it there to hinder us from trading together. Corporate social responsibility, they are in that all the way. Look at Congo. Look at Congo. What corporate social responsibility is there? It's children that are working in their mines. It's women that are being abused daily working in their mines. But out of sight, out of mind. So they lay down the rules, but they do not keep up to it. And we fear rules.
Yeah, thank you. Ambassador, thank you very much. We're now 4 minutes to the end of today's session. Let's hear from Brother Coco. I think he has a question. He got his hand up. And then will probably be the last question we take, and then we'll hear the announcements from Brother Pigeon, and then we'll bring the meeting to a close. Thank you. Yes, Brother Coco.
Hello.
Hi.
Greetings, comrades. Thank you, Ambassador, for your insightful conversation today. I'm looking at a report which was produced by Africa. There's a magazine, a Pan-African white magazine, which shows the statistics for trade between different continents. And
sorry, are you saying there's a magazine that shows a what?
So it's called Africa Report. It's showing what the trade has been within different continents.
Okay, can you put that in the chat for us, please, so that we can also later access?
I'll try to put that in the group because I'll have to print the PDF and share that.
That's fine. Brother Coco, you might want to put it in the WhatsApp group also, so that we can access.
That's where I'll put it. Yes.
Thank you very much. Continue.
So it says inter-African exports account for around 16% of foreign trade of African countries. And when you compare that with Asia, Asia is on 55%, and North America is on 49%, and then the European Union is on 63%. So just to show you how dismal it is we trade with each other, because our economies are still geared towards providing natural resources to our colonial masters. That is where the problem is. we are still continuing the colonial agenda. But in this case, we have the black men in charge. That's why it's called neo-colonialism. And that's why Dr. Nkrumah was toppled, because he was the first one to reveal this. But that is the problem. It still continues. So just to answer your question, Sister Abigail, yes, FTA is there. It's led by a South African brother called Wamkele Mene, who was a lawyer at a Wall Street lawyer. So he is trying to build that. Of course, it's happening, but as I've said, look at 16% and think and tell me, how soon will we get to 60%, 50%, or anywhere else? And most of these problems, they boil down to the borders. They boil down to the borders that we have amongst ourselves. The one question which Dr. Nkrumah said, unity now. Unity now. But then someone said, no, keep these borders, keep the Berlin borders. It's better that way because we won't have to fight over the borders. What kind of madness is that? It's a self-inflicted injury, unfortunately. I won't go too much into details tonight because I can see the time is almost done.
Yeah,
but
no, thank you.
That is where we are.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Coco. So Brother Pigeon has reminded us that in the chat that we did some research on taxation in Africa, and there's a committee called ATAC. So at some point we'll need a session on tax on the continent. Yeah, so we've come to the end of today's session. I must admit, though, as a layman, I don't fully understand the technical parts of Ambassador's presentation and Brother Pigeon's presentation on all those committees he mentioned linked with the WTO. I don't understand all of it. It might be worth us getting to grips with that. And I think that the suggestion that we do seminars, is it seminars? Yes, I think will be helpful, so that seminars will be more educative, if that makes sense. So, for example, Ambassador will come in and we'll do a seminar on, I don't know, Lumi, for instance, and that I think it's more geared towards education, and then we can understand things. Whereas here we're having a discussion, and because we're having a discussion, we're not really educating ourselves. We're just having a discussion on issues, and there's an assumption that we all understand what we are discussing. But if the Pigeon, for instance, understands more about WTO and all these committees he's a member of, and we don't, then how do we have a proper conversation when we don't understand what others understand? So I think that going forward, we might want to consider having seminars also on matters that we think are important. Yeah. The other thing also is that, I don't know if you've noticed, but we've done a big change, which is that when CSG first started, we met in a physical space, in a physical environment in Clapham South in London. And we started the meeting at 7 p.m. every Thursday. And when COVID came, we moved online. And when we moved online, we kept the same time of 7 p.m. But as you all know, GMT London time changes during summer, between summer and winter time. So in summer, it moves forward, and then and then in winter it moves back because of light hours. So, but the problem is that for those on the continent, it meant that if you are in Kenya, for instance, you are finishing our meetings sometimes beyond midnight or after midnight, and that wasn't really good. So we've changed the time now to 6 p.m. I don't know if you all noticed, and it is a big deal because it means that going forward, if we keep it, it means that for those of you on the continent, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Ghana, and so on, Ethiopia and others, it means that your time will not change. It means if 6 p.m., 6 p.m. for you throughout the year. The only time it will change will be for us in the UK. But since CSG is for Africa, I think those of us in England, Scotland, Sister Chizomo is in Scotland. For those of us in England, Scotland, Ireland, and so on, I think we are happy to make that sacrifice for the continent. So we are trialing the 6 p.m. Let's see how it goes. Let us know how you feel about it, and if it works for us, let's keep it. Okay, so that is me. Let Brother Pigeon then. Sister Abigail, you had a question? Sister Abigail, did you have a question? Because your hand is up. If not, I'll ask Brother Pigeon. Yes, please ask your question. Sister Abigail, ask a question. Brother Pigeon, can you chair, please? I have it. Someone is knocking my door. I need to attend to my door.
Yeah, I'm just pressing. When you come back, I'll be close. But let Sister Abigail go ahead.
Okay.
I think it's an old hand.
Okay. Okay. Yes, thank you for all of us who have participated for this today's session. Indeed, we had thought of having an economics class and a session on economics. Proposals and suggestions have been put forth. And some of my thinking was that we either make the last Saturday of every month to focus on economics. Whatever Sister and Ambassador Jasmin has presented today, as much as it is linked to the unification, it speaks to the economics of Africa. And many do agree that we also need to pursue economics of Africa in the process of unifying Africa. Improving taxation still will be on economics. So yes, we will think about this and see whether we will set aside Saturdays to be for economics, the last month Saturdays, and still focus on the unification of Africa from the economics angle, if that will work. So we are still working on that, because basically there's a lot of economics presentation in relation to Africa unification. Like this today, and maybe taxation, maybe loan, maybe blockchain, all those focus on economic aspects of the unification. So we really think about this and see whether we can have last Saturday of every month to focus on unification from economics angle. Now, to bring this to an end,
Sorry, brother Pigeon, can I just mention that I think the solution to this is to make Saturdays political economic unification, and that solves the problem in terms of terminology, because the original term for economics was political economy, and then it was broken into politics and economics. So I think if we have political economic unification, then that caters for everything.
Thank you for that, because that now will help me and inform on terms of those speakers who might want to come and speak on something. Maybe I'll alternate politics and anything with economics.
Then that it makes no difference to us. If you're talking of taxation, it's African political economy. If you're talking about trade, it's African political economy. All these things are do with African political economy. And all we are saying in CSG is that unification, liberation, development must be at the heart of it. So it's so Saturdays becomes political economic unification conversations around that.
Okay, thank you very much. So without much ado, permit me to inform members that we will proceed with our Thursdays philosophy class, which we invite members to join us. If you are not part of that, you are really missing a lot. So please join us.
Yeah, Pigeon, don't forget to thank Madam Ambassador for her presentation.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'll do that as well, because of course I have known Ambassador for some time, and when we discussed this, she was willing, And she's somebody who might present more than this to other aspects also, like now Lumi and many other things that she's concerned with. We're also looking forward to Brother Kama on the day they'll be ready for blockchain presentation. We will also be looking forward to that. And Sister Abigail on the agricultural aspect of our food, which is still part of economics, and the control or the liberation of that as well. So on next Saturday, we will communicate the topic for discussion or the presentation or whatever we have a guest, but our Saturday conversation, as has been said, is conversation of on the unification of Africa from political economics of Africa as a gear towards the unification of Africa. All the recordings will be available by next week, the recordings for this week. So, Brother Kwame, unless there's anything else, permit me to thank everybody else who also gave their time to be here. And let me thank sincerely our brothers in London who are also trying to make the adjustments. And as Brother Kwame has said, we are observing this, whether it affects our attendance and how we can adjust with it. Thank you.
No, I have nothing to say except to say that it's likely that Brother Kama Kachunde will do a presentation on blockchain technology in line of Lumi, because Lumi, as you know, if it's going to work, will also use blockchain technology or could use blockchain technology. So it may be that I think next week, Saturday, we hear on blockchain technology. And I understand there is an African Association of blockchain technologists who can come and do a presentation for us. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you all, and have a lovely evening, morning, or afternoon from wherever you're joining us. Thank you.
Brother Pigeon.
Yes.
Brother, please, I'm looking for you. Side chat me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Maybe you should side chat on the WhatsApp because this one is going to be closing soon, Sister Abigail.
Yes, sir. What's up? Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Thank you. Good night and good morning. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.